Hey there, future economists. Let's talk land and capital. We're exploring the fascinating worlds of capital and land markets. Understanding these concepts is like getting a backstage pass to how our economy, and in many ways our society, actually works. So, what are these magical things, land and capital? They are what economists call factors of production. Understanding them helps us understand wealth, poverty, growth, and even environmental challenges. Okay, let's talk about land. In economics, land refers to all natural resources. This includes the physical earth, minerals, oil, natural gas, forests, rivers, lakes, and even fish in the sea. A super important characteristic of land is that its total supply is largely fixed. We can't create more land. This fixed supply has huge implications for how land markets work and how prices are determined. Agricultural land, the plot your house sits on, a national park, and an underground reservoir of crude oil are all examples of land. The payment made for the use of land, or the income received by the owner of land, is called rent. In economics, rent is specifically the return to the factor of production known as land. So, when a farmer pays to use a field, or an oil company pays for drilling rights, that's economic rent. Understanding this concept of rent is crucial when we start looking at land markets. Land is the stage upon which all economic activity plays out. Using land typically comes with a cost, or it generates an income for its owner. This isn't just the rent you pay for your apartment, though that includes a land component. It's the broad definition that helps us understand its role in production and its economic significance beyond just being dirt. Now let's switch gears and talk about capital. Economic capital refers to man-made resources used in the production of other goods and services. Think of it as the tools, equipment, buildings, and infrastructure that we've created to help us make stuff. Unlike land, which is a natural resource, capital is produced. We make it. This means the supply of capital isn't fixed in the same way the supply of land is. We can and do create more capital. There are a few different types of capital we should know about. First, there's physical capital: machinery, computers, delivery trucks, buildings, roads, bridges, and ports. Then there's human capital: skills, knowledge, education, and experience of the workforce. Finally, there's financial capital, the money used to purchase physical capital or invest in businesses. The process of creating new capital is called investment. It requires saving resources today to create something that will generate more output or value in the future. Just like land earns rent, capital also earns a return for its owners or for those who provide it. For physical capital, this return might be part of the profits a business makes from using its machinery. Understanding these returns, profit and interest, is essential when we look at how capital markets function. So, we've got land, natural resources, and capital, man-made productive assets. But how do these things actually get into the hands of people and businesses who want to use them? The answer is through markets. A market is a place or a system where buyers and sellers come together to exchange goods or services. Land markets are where the rights to use or own land are traded. This can involve buying and selling plots of land outright or rental agreements. Capital markets facilitate the transfer of financial resources from those who have them, savers, to those who need them, borrowers or investors. Banks take deposits from savers and lend that money to businesses or individuals. Stock markets allow companies to raise capital by selling shares to investors. Bond markets allow governments and corporations to borrow money by issuing bonds. The prices determined in these markets, rent for land, interest rates for capital, are incredibly important signals. These markets help ensure that land and capital are allocated to their most productive uses. Let's dig deeper into land markets. What makes the price of one piece of land skyrocket while another remains relatively cheap? It all comes down to supply and demand. The demand for land is what economists call a derived demand. This means people or businesses don't usually demand land for its own sake, but for what they can do with it. Several factors can shift the demand curve for land. Population growth is a big one. More people generally means more demand for housing, for agricultural land to produce food, and for commercial land for businesses. Location is absolutely critical for land. A plot of land in a bustling city center with good transport links will be in much higher demand, and therefore more expensive, than a similar-sized plot in a remote rural area. The total physical quantity of land is essentially fixed. However, the supply of land for a particular use can change. zoning laws and regulations can also restrict or expand the supply of land available for certain purposes. The interaction of this derived demand with the largely fixed supply determines land prices and rental rates. Let's shift our focus to the fascinating world of capital markets. The demand for capital primarily comes from businesses and entrepreneurs who want to invest in new projects, expand their operations, or upgrade their technology. Governments also demand capital to finance public infrastructure projects like roads, schools, and hospitals. What factors influence this demand for capital? Technological advancements, business confidence, expected rates of return on investment, and the cost of capital itself. The supply of capital primarily originates from savings. Households save a portion of their income. Businesses might retain some of their profits for future investment. Governments can also be suppliers of capital if they run budget surpluses. In our interconnected global economy, savings can also flow in from other countries known as foreign investment. These accumulated savings form the pool of loanable funds available in the capital markets. Higher income levels generally lead to more savings, increasing the supply of capital. Understanding these supply and demand dynamics helps us see how interest rates are determined and why capital flows where it does. We've explored land markets and capital markets separately, but these markets are not isolated islands. They are deeply intertwined, constantly influencing each other in a dynamic dance. Most productive activities require both land and capital. A farmer needs land to grow crops, but also capital in the form of tractors, irrigation systems, and seeds. A company building a new factory needs a plot of land, but also massive amounts of capital for construction, machinery, and technology. Changes in the capital market can significantly impact the demand for land. If interest rates fall, borrowing becomes cheaper. This makes it less expensive for developers to finance the purchase of land and the construction of new buildings. Conversely, if capital becomes very expensive, high interest rates, investment projects might be shelved, reducing the demand for land associated with those projects. Conditions in the land market can influence decisions about capital investment. If prime land in a city center becomes incredibly scarce and expensive, businesses might choose to invest their capital differently. The scarcity or abundance of suitable land and its price can therefore steer capital investment towards certain types of projects or certain geographical locations. The influence of land and capital markets doesn't stop with each other. Their tendrils reach out and touch virtually every other part of the economy. The amount and type of capital available, like machinery and technology, directly affect the productivity of labor and the demand for different types of skills. More investment in capital can create new jobs, but it can also displace workers if new machines automate tasks previously done by humans. The availability and cost of land for businesses to set up or expand can influence how many people they can employ in a particular region. The cost of land, rent or purchase price, and the cost of capital, interest or return on investment are fundamental costs of production for businesses. If land rents in a city go up, businesses operating there will face higher expenses. If interest rates rise, the cost of borrowing for new equipment or inventory increases. These costs often get passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices for goods and services. Government policies play a massive role in shaping and being shaped by land and capital markets. Taxation policies, for example, can influence land use and investment decisions. Regulations like zoning laws, environmental protections, or financial regulations directly impact how these markets operate. In our increasingly globalized world, foreign investment brings capital into a country, potentially lowering interest rates and fueling growth. So why does all this matter to you? Understanding these markets is fundamental to understanding how wealth is created and distributed in our society. The ownership of land and capital is a major source of income and wealth for many individuals and corporations. The prices determined in these markets, rent and interest, directly influence who gets richer and who might struggle. Grasping these concepts is incredibly useful for your own life. Thinking about buying a house someday, you'll be interacting directly with the land market and likely the capital market for a mortgage. Considering investing for your future, you'll be participating in capital markets. Understanding the factors that drive land prices or stock market values can help you make more informed, personal financial decisions. Land and capital markets are central to the grand challenges and opportunities of economic growth and sustainable development. How can we manage our land resources in a way that supports both economic prosperity and environmental health for future generations? Studying economics, and specifically topics like land and capital markets, isn't just about graphs and theories, it's about understanding the world around you.